Hey, White Sox prospect podcast fans. It is Southside Sox on the Farm, podcast number 6. And this is the first time since episode number 1 when we managed to get world famous James Fox to spend some time with us. This time, Anders Johanson. Anders is hopped on with us. He is among many things, jack of many trades. He is covering the Charlotte Knights for us this season. He just had his first game in person on Sunday. Barely got to have any of the free popcorn or hot dogs before he was kicked out of there because of the very truncated day. But we're going to get a little bit of scoop on what it's like to be covered in Charlotte because we've never had somebody in Charlotte before. And you know that other guy, it's Darren Black, representing Charlotte. You guys.
Hey, Charlotte coming in hot.
Look at me, bald-headed. What a clown. Okay, we are going to do the first half. The first half of this podcast, we're going to skim pretty quickly through low A because let's face it, working off of, as we do with these, Darren's weekly update. In this case, really 3 of the 4 MVPs this week are guys who, well, maybe aren't necessarily the ones to get excited about. And in the case of the Cannonballers, it's the guy we've been talking about all year. So let's dive right into, well, first of all, welcome, guys. You guys are looking very, very adorable in your Charlotte wear. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, got to represent the 704.
Let's jump right in because we're going to be hearing a lot from Anders and the Charlotte experience, and we're going to be really breaking down the team itself, even though the team is lousy. They're coming off of a pretty darn good week, actually. So we're going to devote a little bit more time than usual to Charlotte in the second half of the show. Let's dive in and just go from low A all the way on up. Darren, we have named Jose Rodriguez the MVP for the Cannonballers for, I believe, the 68th week in a row. And can you tell us anything new about what's going on? It does seem like there's been a couple, if not worrisome, but just a couple flagging signs in his game over the past week.
Yeah, so it basically just comes down to he's in kind of a weird slump. If you do read the weekly, he's hitting 286, but that doesn't really sound like a slump, but he really isn't showing that gap power any longer. So that's just kind of gone away. So his stats are going down. The WRC plus is down to 115, but he's still looking good with the K rate. It's always going to be low. That's just who he is. But the walk rate is still low. So he's just kind of going through some, not really hitting the ball well right now, just kind of all singles like Benjamin Bailey. But he should be, nothing is indicating that he's fallen off the table. He's just going through a bit of a power slump.
It's worth noting, apologies to Gavin Sheets, who's been pretty much our position player MVP all year. He was surpassed this week in the voting by Jose Rodriguez. So yes, we have a low A shortstop as technically our very early 1 month in MVP for the minor league season. And Anders, have you been able to pay much attention to the system at large, and perhaps whether or not you have, please offer your explanation for a team that manages to win 4 games in 6 weeks?
I mean, it's really hard to explain how that happens. You would think over a month a team would be able to win more than 4 games, but as the Kannapolis Cannonballers have shown, that's not necessarily the case. I think on a minor league level, it's most important to pay attention to the players individually and how they're performing. Like I said, on an individual basis. So don't pay too much attention to the overall record of the team when you're looking at minor leagues. I think the team is more than the sum of its parts. So even though they've only gotten 4 wins, there's a lot more value and talent on the team than their position in the standings might show.
Darren, Chase Krogman's back. He's a guy who is, I guess, you could say a little more experienced than maybe the average player with a very, very young team in Kannapolis. He's basically just missing the cutoff to being sort of on our all-star squad, even though he's played like 5 games this year. He has really maximized his opportunity. Is this a guy you see perhaps moving up this year? We were told, before I You should like how I ask you a question, then I just keep talking. I'm a great host. I bet you guys really enjoy talking with me. Here's another thing. Let's have both of you address this before we even get to Krogman. And that is, Chris Getz came out saying there's not going to be much movement this year. There's not going to be a whole lot because I don't know if that's a coronavirus thing. And there's been like 8,000 promotions and demotions already. So to that end, speak to that generally. And then Darren, maybe the idea of maybe Chase Krogman being a guy who might be moving to Winston-Salem sooner than later.
Yeah, so for all the promotions and demotions, like the more notable ones have been more so demotions just because of the aggressive placement with these guys with one fewer rookie league. So like Luis Maeses and Harvey Mendoza, both really young guys, inexperienced. In terms of Maeses, he's really never really put it together so far. He's just kind of a toolbox. And putting them at high A was just clearly too much for them. And same with Benjamin Bailey and Kannapolis, it was Dan said when he went to go see him in person, he said he just looked overmatched, and you could kind of see that in the stats too. Only singles, didn't really, or he did have a homer, I believe, but just really just on the dumps. But for legit promotions, it's kind of just Jason Billaus and then a couple other relievers, Alfredo Gomez and Lane Ramsey. So not guys that you really think in terms of kind of like high leverage arms, or maybe not make the team this year at all. Maybe Alfredo Gomez can, but just the bullpen's been bad, so they got to see what they have in their older arms and see what they've got and just move them up, and then kind of just hope that they don't need them, but they got to keep doing well to see if they can get up there.
So Darren, you're calling me a liar? There haven't been 8,000 promotions. You're saying I'm being a little hysterical.
Well, there's been a ton of injuries in like baseball in general. So you've got like Evan Skoug going up 2 levels to take over for Sebi. Jared Kelly's hurt. I mean, obviously you have Luis Robert and Eloy hurt. So you've got guys that are probably up in another position they shouldn't be, or they're keeping older guys they probably don't really need right now. It's just a really messy year overall.
Yeah, I think that's the domino effect of a major league organization, is when there's injuries on the major league level, there's going to be stuff that trickles down all throughout the minors. So, I mean, with Eloy and Luis Robert going down for, majority of the season, they had to move some position players up and down. And with the bullpen struggling as much as it has so far for the White Sox, they're going to have to move some arms up and down and see what works. I think my initial reaction to Chris Getz saying there wouldn't be very many promotions is maybe he was talking more on the major league level. I don't know if he got more specific than that there wouldn't be movement between minor league to, low A to double A to triple A, stuff like that. Maybe he was talking more about, we're not going to send a lot of guys up to Chicago this year. But I think it's a result of the injuries that we're seeing people move around this much on all levels.
Yeah, the guy he highlighted was Caleb Freeman, and he's the one guy that actually hasn't moved. So
leave it to me, Anders, to invite you onto the podcast for the first time and then isolate you. But hey, Darren, let's talk for a second. SKOOG, first AAA double. How about that? Anders, you would have no reason to know. Why would you? SKOOG went to high school with, I think, Darren. He went to my high school, of course. Believe it or not, by looking at us, we are not in the same class, me and Darren.
No.
Close, real close. And
really
close. Like a senior freshman kind of deal.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. He got hazed. Yeah. And I, of course, never fail to at least mention to Darren, and he's probably very annoyed to hear it, but Evan also went to TCU. I went to TCU. So clearly the lineage for Evan Skoug, a guy who shouldn't be at AAA. Sorry, Evan shouldn't even be in AAA, but having his first double in his first, I believe that was his first action at Charlotte, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Look at you paving the way for major league talent.
Yeah.
He just now with that double managed to outpace my actual career at.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Hey, all right.
Yeah, hopefully he sticks there. That'd be kind of fun, but he's getting an increased paycheck for a couple of days. So
yeah, no kidding. And you wonder sometimes, because there are these, especially with catchers, but you got these fluke, and I guess maybe the org arm is another guy who can move around a lot. And you wonder sometimes how often it happens when a guy does sort of get this fluky thing where it's just like it's his turn in the rotation, so suddenly he's in Charlotte instead. Or in the case of SKOOG, I'm not really sure how he ended up leapfrogging like Carlos Perez to get to Charlotte, unless they sort of want to just trial him by fire and then just get rid of him if he flames out. I don't know what the agenda is there, But it would be sort of cool just one of these times, LHS TCU aside, just have a guy sort of get this fluky assignment and he just kicks ass. He's like, yeah, it's about time, guys.
I will say he hit a double on Sunday for his first hit in AAA, and it was about 2 feet shy of being a home run, but it looked like easy power. So I wouldn't be surprised if his bat got him to AAA.
That's what he had out of college. He just also, I think, tied the record for most strikeouts in a season when he was drafted.
It's gonna happen.
And that is carried over to his minor league playing days.
Something the White Sox are not unfamiliar with.
Yeah, it's a trait they really looked for in the mid and late 2010s.
Well, it's good to see that the training table from Libertyville High School is paying off for Evan Skoug. Well done, Evan. Okay, so we will invite Anders back into the program. Nice to have you back. Welcome back. All three of us can speak again. And let's move up to High A. I'm not really sure who we're going to talk about, Darren, because, let me butcher another name. Travis Manuel. I don't know how French she is, but
no idea.
He's he's MVP. He hit insanely this past week, over 500 nuts, showed power that he's never, ever, 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 ever shown at the minor league level.
Yeah, literally.
And so I guess you can't say he backed into the MVP.
Yeah, no, I mean, this guy, he just had the best week of his life, basically, because he hit 3 homers. He had only had 1 previously, in his entire minor league career since 2018. He only had 1. So just kind of unbelievable. And even before that, he was kind of a bench bat already. So he's just, I think he's playing for Bryce Bush mainly right now, and he is totally taking advantage of it. You might as well, with Luis Meneses and I'm forgetting the other guy's name right now, but with them down in Kannapolis now, he might actually be a starter every day. Because how do you take that out? It's kind of like Yermín. You can't really take him out until he proves that he has to be.
Travis's timing was really good too, because Tiffany Wintz, who does a lot of photography, we end up picking up a lot of her stuff, happened to be at, I think, at least one of his homer games. And so, of course, he's going to be able to milk that big time, that he actually got the round trip. I think she even took some video. So, hey, maybe he just performs when he knows the photog's there. I don't know. Maybe, hey.
When the lights are on, some guys just, they want to crack those long balls.
The dash seemed to still be just sort of doing just enough. There's nothing really overwhelming and impressive about them, but they managed, they're basically they're a 500 team, and they're eking out wins, and that's actually a good thing that they're being resourceful. But sorry, Dash, we're not really going to talk too much about you. Let's move up to Birmingham, because Birmingham is one of the better professional teams out there. Definitely by far the best team in the White Sox organization. Better even than the White Sox themselves. Sorry, White Sox, but solid rotation. We keep talking about the rotation every week, and nothing about that has changed. In fact, now we've got John Park, the guy who's like, oh yeah, John Park, whatever. He's the MVP this week. I think pretty much every MVP for the Barons has been essentially just another guy in the starting rotation. And what's going on? What is going on with the rotation? This can't be the Danny Farquhar effect.
Yeah. John Park and Blake Battenfield are just good, professional pitchers. They spot well. Park is actually striking out a few more people than normal, which is really intriguing if you want to look at him as maybe a potential lefty bullpen piece, since they don't really have that in their system yet. So keep an eye on that at least. But then obviously Connor Pilkington, up year. Jason Bilaus is now in AA, and he's doing pretty well. And Cade McClure, there's just a lot of guys that are just doing well. Cade McClure did have that one bad start, but he's been mostly fine throughout. But yeah, it's just, they're all really impressive.
Anders, you are going to get to see in person very soon the Ofrady Gomez experience. Me and Darren have been talking about him. This guy who's dropped out of the sky, and he's just basically hit the ground, hit the mound, and kicked ass. Now he's in Charlotte. He's got definitely a merit promotion. But when you're looking at this, I guess just specifically rotation as a next guy you might be seeing up in Charlotte, who's the guy maybe you're most interested in seeing, and if it's a different guy, who do you think will be the next perhaps to be promoted into the Charlotte rotation?
Well, I mean, you can't ignore what Park has done so far, as you guys already talked about. I think one of the most interesting things about Birmingham overall is that, the casual fan just looking at the roster would only recognize maybe like two or three of these names. And yet here they are with a 20-9 record, with a team full of people that you might not know who that is. Like, who is Lincoln Hensman? Who is Carlos Perez? We obviously Micah Adolfo is a name people might recognize, and then Connor Pilkington and Alec Hansen. I think if we're just going on name alone and how long they've been around in the White Sox organization, those would be my two picks to go up to Charlotte eventually, or more quickly than another name, Hansen and Pilkington. And I think of the two, I would say Alec Hansen might make his way to Charlotte sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think Birmingham just has a surprisingly talented roster, despite what they look like on paper.
Okay, challenge round now. We've talked all year of the trifecta of relievers, of which Alec Hansen, who seems to have an extreme difficulty hitting the strike zone like every other game. So he may end up he may have a whole year in Birmingham. I don't know. But Andrew Perez, Bennett Souza, and the Cannon, Wilkin Cannon, those are sort of like the trifecta, the guys who are sort of the up and coming relievers. And it's not as if Charlotte has a lights out pen. They've got a lot of big names, but not necessarily anybody who's just cranking it. So of those three guys, each of you, let me know who you think the first one's going to be. We got a right-hander and two lefties. Maybe Souza has the inside track. He got the major league camp invite this year, but Darren, give me your pick first. Who's the first guy we're going to see in Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Souza. He's older. He has more saves, even though it is just two. But that just means they probably like him a bit more to put him in high leverage situations. But I'm going with Souza. He's got everything they need. Lefty.
I'm going to be honest. I have not paid too close attention to Birmingham so far this year, seeing as they are in Alabama and I'm in North Carolina, so I'm not as likely to go check them out. So, Darren, if you want to pick a second one.
Who's the second most likely, Darren?
I'll pick since I picked a reliever, I'll go a starter this time. I think it's going to be Cade McClure. Again, same reasons as Souza, older, just one poor performance. But I believe he was pretty close to being in AAA before the season too. So Souza and McClure, I expect to see them in Charlotte.
Do we look at?
I was going to say the same thing.
There, exactly. Do we look at the, maybe this is a rhetorical question, but the invites to camp and actually doing something decent in camp? Cade McClure, I think, had a couple decent outings. Cody Medeiros sort of reversed what his trends seemed to be by having a pretty good camp. Souza got the invite. I don't think he did terribly well, but he did get the invite. Are those good crib notes, guys, in terms of getting an idea of where players are on the depth chart? I guess it seems obvious, but it might not always be.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not always. Like, just take Jason Belaus is moving up, Alfredo Gomez is moving up. I don't believe Gomez was in camp, but I could be mistaken on that one.
I think he was.
But yeah, if they're non-roster invitees or 40-man guys, obviously those are just names to keep an eye on, and they probably will move up. But I always look if they're doing well, and then if they're maybe not like Tim Beckham old, like a seasoned veteran, he's just kind of there as a just in case 60-day IL kind of thing. But like Souza 26, McClure 25, I look at that as well.
Yeah, I think with things like that, it's more of an indication of the front office kind of like where they value these players, and just wanting to take an extra look when everybody's kind of all gathered together in the same place. So even if they're not on the 40-man roster or really high up in the depth chart, they are at least on the radar of some of the people up in Chicago. And they want to see how they do against, major league hitters and kind of where they're at in their development. It doesn't necessarily indicate that they're close to making it to Chicago or even being promoted to the next level, wherever they are in the minor league organization. But I think it's just, it just kind of lets you know, okay, they have their eye on this guy for some reason. They want to see what's going on with him. So maybe I'll tab that and check him out when he's in the minors.
It's always refreshing to see a guy really seize that opportunity. Andrew Vaughn did it in 2020 spring training. And obviously he did it in summer camp to a degree in Schaumburg. Your mean Mercedes absolutely did it in spring training 2020. And ironically, he wasn't all that great in summer camp. He wasn't really all that great in spring training this year, but you wonder how much that sort of sticks. And I mean, who knows how decisions are made these days with Tony La Russa in charge of everything. However, I mean, you figure that even though Tony wasn't around, he made such an impact in 2020 to the point where he could confidently tweet, not that he lacks confidence, but confidently tweet after every game, see you in Chicago, your mean loves you, Chicago loves your mean. But he's still doing it now, but back then he hadn't played a major league game. So it's always nice to see when guys actually get that opportunity, by fluke or not, and sort of run with it. So that's been a lot of fun to see, and it carried on to this year's spring training as well. We are going to devote a lot of time to Charlotte. That's the second half of our show. So right now we are going to take a break. I am going to give both Darren and Anders a chance to do another wardrobe change, because man, these fancy pants got different Charlotte hats, for God's sake. But it's going to have to be quick, because we're only going to pause for about a second. We will be right back for the second half of Southside Sox on the Farm, podcast number 6. Hey, I wasn't lying. It was almost immediate. Second half of the show begins, and we're going to devote it all pretty much to the Charlotte Knights, and maybe looking more Charlotte Knights to the White Sox, because after all, we all follow the White Sox and root for the White Sox, the first place White Sox. Anders, let's start with you and just take us through a little bit of your experience. I assume it is probably your first coverage of the Knights, perhaps your first AAA coverage, but even if it isn't, step us through a little bit of what your experience was on Sunday for your first coverage day.
Yeah, that was my first opportunity to make it out to Truist Field in Charlotte to cover a game. I had been just a couple times as a fan. And it's a beautiful ballpark. My first time walking in there, I was like, all right, they're not messing around here in Charlotte. But I just moved down here to Charlotte from the Chicago suburbs after living there for 26 years. So I never had an opportunity to go to formerly BB&T ballpark and now Truist. But yeah, it's nice to walk in and see a city that really cares about their team, because as far as Charlotte is concerned, the Knights are their team. Even when you talk about the possibility of Charlotte maybe having a Major League Baseball team someday, people kind of say, well, the Knights are our team, so I don't know why we would need another baseball team, even though they're AAA. And obviously a Major League team would be MLB. These people still love the Knights and want to root for the Knights. So if that were ever the case, that a Major League team would make its way to Charlotte, it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But yeah, I mean, it's weird watching AAA, because I was just listening to a different podcast the other day, and they had a former Major League Baseball player on who spent a lot of time in AAA, and he talked about how all the players in AAA hate it there, because they're a step away from the majors, and most of them know that they'll never make it, and if they do make it, they might only be there for a game or two and then never play there again. And all of the guys on the roster of a AAA team know exactly who's going to be the guy that makes it to the majors and sticks around. And he said more often than not, they'd almost rather be in AA than AAA. So that being said, you have a lot of guys here on the Charlotte Knights who have tasted what it's like to be in the majors and are now on a AAA roster for a Major League franchise that's kind of set as far as their depth chart is concerned for the next few years, with young guys like Jimenez and Madrigal and Moncada. There's a lot of positions that are essentially blocked, and you have really talented guys on the Knights roster like Tim Beckham, who I believe won a Gold Glove or was a Gold Glove finalist at one point in his Major League career. He might not make it to the majors, at least not as a member of the White Sox. You have outfielders like Brian Goodwin, who was formerly in the Washington Nationals organization and played for them for a couple seasons. And now he's with the White Sox, who, for all intents and purposes, have their outfield figured out for the next decade, except for right field. And if Goodwin has an opportunity to tell the White Sox, hey, maybe I'm your right fielder of the future, that'd be cool. But he's 30 years old. And I don't think a team is going to invest too heavily in a 30-year-old while the rest of the roster is kind of in their early 20s. So it's fun watching this team, but it's also like what are they doing? Like who's going to be the guy? Are they kind of just playing because they love baseball? Are they playing because they really think they have a shot in this organization? Are they playing because they want to get traded to an organization where they would have a shot? It's hard being a AAA player, I'm sure.
The problem for guys like, let's say, Goodwin in cracking the White Sox roster is that they're actually outfielders. If they want to play outfield for the White Sox, they need to be at another position. They need to be like a catcher,
a corner infielder,
or maybe second base. And then I think they got a shot. So they might want to consider that at some point. Say, hey, Wes Helms, could you give me a little first base time? Because I sort of want to play left field sometime this season for the White Sox. Does that sort of jibe with what you see from this team, Darren, in terms of it having maybe not an uncommon amount, but at least a standard amount of these sort of 4A guys who are just, it's fluky luck to get up. If yet another 6 White Sox outfielders get broken, then Brian Goodwin is going to be playing on the big league team. Otherwise, it's just basically, this is your resume line for 2021, and you hope that 2022 you maybe get a chance at Major League Camp and make a Major League roster.
Yeah, for those guys, Goodwin, Tim Beckham, the only reason they would ever be up is if a 60-day IL stint for anybody. Like Tim Beckham is a middle infielder. There's no place to play for him. Even in a bench role, there's Danny Mendick and Leary Garcia. So there's really not a spot
who
for
can
him.
both play anywhere.
Yeah. So it's 60-day IL stint for them. But I mean, there's also another category of 4A guys that are like Gavin Sheets, Luis Gonzalez, Blake Rutherford. I don't know if Jake Berger kind of counts as that yet, but you can kind of throw in his name for certain situations. And then same with the pitching staff, Jimmy Lambert, Jonnathan Stephens, obviously are the probably 2 biggest names, but then obviously Reynaldo Lopez is there. And then kind of the same story with veterans kind of trying to figure out a way to get back to the majors eventually. It's just typical AAA roster, just some guys that are just guys, and then some other guys that real depth problem. They're just not better than Andrew Vaughn. Oh no.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
no offense to Reynaldo Lopez, we're going to ignore him as a legitimate rotation option for the White Sox. So let's pit Jonnathan Stephens, this week's MVP, against Jimmy Lambert, the guy that you saw, Anders, pitch a pretty darn good game. Maybe not super efficient, but definitely went deep and proved something that he really needed to, because it was certainly his longest outing since 2018. What'd you see from him in that sort of truncated start?
Yeah, well, with each start that he's made so far in this season, he's gone longer and longer into the game. His first start, he pitched an inning and a third. And then in his most recent start, he went 4 2/3, and all the starts in between, it was incrementally increasing. I think his opportunity when he got called up to start that game of the doubleheader against the Tigers may have kind of opened what they were able to do with him here in AAA. I wanted to ask Charlotte Knights manager Wes Helms about that, if he had been available post game for an interview, but unfortunately I wasn't able to ask him that specific question, or any question, because he wasn't available. But I would imagine that was the case, that they were kind of taking it easy with him coming back from Tommy John surgery. They didn't want to push him too hard. They wanted to give him time. He's in AAA, so it's not like he has to prove himself and work his way up. But after he made that start in Detroit, I think, that kind of opened the door for them to do what he probably wants to do, which is go long into games. I don't think any pitcher, even a reliever, wants to pitch 1 inning. I think if you pressed any pitcher, they'd want to be in there for as long as they can. And Lambert is definitely good. He looked solid on Sunday. He struck out, I believe, 6 through 4 2/3. I don't have my notes right in front of me. Yeah, I was impressed with his fastball and his command of his secondary pitches. He got behind in a few counts, and he didn't let that rattle him. He did walk, I think, 3. But the umpire on Sunday had a really tight zone, and I don't think it was Lambert's fault necessarily that those walks did start to pile up a little bit in his limited work. But I was really impressed with Jimmy Lambert from what I saw on Sunday.
Darren, I don't know if it was Saturday or Friday. It was pretty close to the game I undersaw, and that was when Jonnathan Stephens finally had his breakout start for this season. A very impressive weekly MVP for him. He's a guy who's going to be sort of the the right hand or the left hand for guys who would be called up, or maybe even a potential rotation piece going forward. What'd you see from him this week that got him the MVP?
Yeah, I still think he's after Kopech, the 7th best starter in the system. So if 2 injuries, obviously he'd be in there, but he finally had a good start. He's just been really struggling with command lately, and this time no walks, 6 shutout innings, quality start, first of the year. He's still not striking out people like he should be, but the no walks is the thing I'm taking away from this week, because normally he had really good command in 2019 with Winston-Salem. He did do a couple jumps, so maybe that kind of had him out of whack. And obviously going from single A to MLB is probably pretty difficult. And he proved it by his play, but I digress. But Brett.
Well, what I was just going to say is this the first week that we can finally feel a little bit comfortable about the depth at Charlotte, because I've been yelling about it all off season and even into this season about how foolish it is that we have a contention window, but we have 5.5 starters, maybe. And even those, a couple of those were fingers crossed starters. And now this is the first week I feel like, and granted, very small sample size, but I'm feeling a little bit better about being 7 deep.
Yeah, I am as well. Stever looked great. Lambert, even though when he was playing in that spot start, I mean, his stuff looked awesome. He does have a walking problem, seems like everybody in Charlotte does, and that's not totally fixed. But the amount he's striking out people, it doesn't worry me that much. But yeah, I'm definitely more confident going forward if they need to go into that 7th spot. And hopefully, it probably will be Reynaldo Lopez. I've already talked myself into that, but I'm hoping it's Stever when he comes up, because he's much better.
Well, and devil's advocate to the depth problem is that if the White Sox do find themselves needing another starting pitcher, there's no shortage of players that they can trade away. They have plenty of guys who they could put together in a package for a reliable major league level starting pitcher. And I don't think people would even realize that they were missing from the organization because there's so much talent.
In your tarot deck, Anders, I see that you have drawn the aggressive Rick Hahn GM card. We'll see if it plays out that way, because that is definitely an interesting question. Rick Hahn is going to have to back something up this year. He punted last year, and that's fine. It was a mini season, a weird season, a sneeze of a season, and making the playoffs last year is like, okay, it's cool, better to make it than not. But all right, you don't want to mortgage your team in order to make a trade for that necessarily. But he did punt. He can't punt this year. They do not have that depth anywhere. So it will be interesting to see. I like that you are drawing the aggressive card. I would say, I think my draw is maybe I got the wait and see card, because I'm just not sure he's not going to talk himself out of something. But
Rick Hahn is on record. Not that this has made a difference in most other places where he's on record, but he's on record saying that he's not here to hoard prospects. So I'm choosing chaotic good Rick Hahn. And hoping that he'll make a trade for a pitcher if need be.
Yeah, my cards are that Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert are acquisitions at the end of the season.
No, that's right. That's right. The money was spent already. That's right. The money has been spent.
I mean, the Adam Engel acquisition has already worked out pretty well.
That's true.
I can't believe they got him.
Is that so cool? I mean,
from Charlotte. They got him from Charlotte. The Charlotte baseball team.
I mean, I can't
believe
he
had to purchase his contract.
Yeah, I forget, guys. The money was spent. It's sort of like I slept through it. I don't know how I did that, but hey, look at that. We ended up.
By the time those guys come back, there's going to be people on Twitter who are like, "Oh, it's like we got a brand new outfielder, so it's fine."
I mean, that's not untrue. However, oh my God, are you kidding me? Please don't try to sell that to me, White Sox. Please don't. Just don't. Let's start talking about it now so they don't. Let's see. I was going to ask about whether Jake Berger or Gavin Sheets will be who will be a major leaguer first. But I think that the answer here is, again, it's a trick question. I'm guessing they're going to be they're both going to be major leaguers, but maybe not with the Chicago White Sox.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
it's whoever can be a corner outfielder before the other one.
pretty much. And Gavin Sheets does have the. I know Jake Berger is working out. He's working out in the outfield. I know you're going to see some of that. One of these games that you show up for, Anders, you're going to see him working out. You'll be like, "What is that dude doing out in the outfield?" Like, oh, I get it. This guy wants to play right field this year.
If they're going to be in the majors as a corner infielder, it's not going to be with the White Sox.
Yeah, I like the Gavin Sheets in playing very good right field. Has forgotten how to catch the ball at first base. I believe he has 4 errors already this year at first base. So, whoops. I guess that stuff can happen. But
Saw that on Sunday.
yeah. Okay. Well, we did attend to a little bit of Charlotte. Maybe not as much as I would like to get into because we didn't even talk about Mike Wright. Oh, please! Like he's not going to be the next guy called up.
Tune in next time.
Yeah, exactly. Tune in next time. Anders, you are out at Charlotte, I think, pretty regularly for us. I know you threw down a whole bunch of games. So I know the season's weird because it's like week on, week off, but we'll look forward to getting more reports from you. And Darren, yeah, maybe we'll be back next week wearing a different hat. Would you order if you would order the goddamn Cannonballers cap, I bet you they're going to start winning. Would you order that thing?
Yeah.
Use some of the big money.
They won 2 games last week. They're on a huge rule.
That's true. Yeah, they almost had a 500 week. My goodness. All right. Before we run out of time, thanks everybody for watching, listening. Thanks to Anders. Thanks for joining again. Darren, read Darren's stuff all week on the minor league update. Anders live and from Charlotte and me. I'll just keep babbling here and there. See you guys.